Inez, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining the Scale Up Africa podcast on wealth and impact.
Thanks for having me.
So you're based in Indonesia, but you're very much a global ambassador for impact and climate. So you and I last met in Davos in Switzerland. It was freezing. It was about 6 months ago. And we've been talking about South-South collaboration and just how much agency and resources and learnings that we can share across, Latin America, Asia, Africa, Oceania, Pacific regions. There's so many elements of challenge that we share on this, and the history as well, just the dynamics of our global history that we share. And so we just be talking about a little bit about that. But I want to first of all start with your personal journey and how you came to
Mhm.
be, the founder of Supernova and what you're building with the ecosystem there and just your journey towards sort of philanthropy and impact. Just you're a builder, so just tell us a bit more about your story.
Oh wow. I'm I'm not entering this work actually from like philanthropy or NGOs or activists. I came through the back door, I guess. I'm coming from a very commercial background. So business, commodities, rural SMEs, messy cash flows. And people are trying to survive systems that make very little sense on the ground. Um,
I like what you
my,
said.
so,
Messy cash flows. It's very messy. It's very informal, and informal is the dominant situation, right? For all of our situations across the global south, it's the informality that is actually driving our economies, regardless of the messiness and the craziness, right? So yeah. So tell us what I mean, and I love what you said about like you're a pure commercial person, and I think a lot of NGOs and nonprofits now are actually having to face the fact that the whole aid model and typical, traditional philanthropy hasn't worked for us, number one. And number two is just not really going to fix the issues that we are facing at the scale at which we need to mobilize resources to fix those issues. So the commercial models and revenue models are the things that we need to all pivot towards to really find some more sustainable ways of tackling whether it's health, education. I mean, Africa, we've seen how just the need to send money to your people back home has really led to this concept of mobile money, which is very much an African success story in terms of innovation and meeting non-consumption, like those who have a deep meaningful need but haven't had the services to meet them where they're at in terms of affordability and access. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your approach and your model towards making an impact through your ecosystem.
so I think the way I reframe the problem is started from the wondering why these decent people are trapped inside system that rewarded the wrong things,
Right.
right? Like when I mentioned, and I thank you for the welcoming remark. Like I'm a very commercial person because people were like, "Oh, you're capitalist," and it was like because
It's
for me, capitalist economics is just a tool.
yeah,
You can use it the wrong way, or can use it like you know um, the right way.
yeah,
So, and because I'm a commercial person, and I believe there's a problem, there's a solution, and we all have agencies to deploy it. So for me, it's more about not how do we convince people to make better choices, but how do we make better choices economically viable?
right.
You saw people making the wrong choice left and right, not because they don't know it was wrong, because it was the only economically viable options.
Right.
Like you're trying to find an organic vegetables, but the one on the shelves ringing pesticides and it's just driving down the costs.
Yeah.
You're simply cannot, the economic system is just so wrongly wired that it rewards you to,
To buy the
reach out for
toxic
that.
produce instead of the organic
Yes,
stuff that's good for you, which is so expensive. Yeah.
which is it's not making any sense. It's not adding another input, yet it's much more expensive.
Mm,
So that's when we think we're kind of doing the whole value addition process the wrong way right now. So at Supernova Equatora, so we finance the midstream actors, the one who actually doing the value processing activities.
mm,
And specifically for us working in Indonesia, we're working only in the commodity value chain, which the one that we feel most comfortable with. So it's the processor, aggregators, traders, SMEs in cacao, coffee, arenga sugar, horticulture, and a lot of forest linked products. And these are, it's basic everyday needs, right? And we're not over glorified things, but when people are hoarding together farmers, buyers, logistic, quality, and trust, but these are the systems that are repeatedly being broken.
mm.
And so this is where our work to build finance that fits reality. And I'm saying messy cash flow because somehow the finance products never built around the harvest season, never built around the reality of what people need.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know a lot, obviously, about the education system in Ghana, but for instance, in Indonesia, June is the most depressing month, probably for farmers, because it is like the end of the
Academic
old
year.
term and entering academic year, and
Yeah.
you kind of want, you know, your children going to school, and this is where they need money. Yet somehow, people just don't understand why farmers take more loans and just not being responsible. But in reality, they just need money for their school
Their
kids.
families, yeah, to live their lives, yeah. But their cash flows don't follow a pattern. It follows the crop and the harvest cycle and all of those things. And so that's where you meet them where they're at, right?
It's
Mm.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about so you told us about your approach with Supernova. Tell us about how you are making an impact with the communities exactly. How does that reflect in real terms within your community?
Uh, in real terms, is that again, as a commercial person,
Yeah.
we are laser focused on who is it that we serve, right? And one word that sounds really soft and really intangible is relationship and well, two, relationship and trust base,
Trust. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In the world of finance, you try to quantify that trust. You try to measure the level of trust in that relationship. So we in the current financial system, it's basically you're trying to see financial reports, you see historicals, you see the way they adding value process, adding value in commodities, right? So um, and so right when you say we're meeting them right where they are. So first and foremost, we examine how their relationship with the nature, because you cannot like control C and control V, like copy
Copy and
paste it.
paste. Yeah. Yeah.
Copy and paste. You cannot like even crops that are fast, like rice and beans and corns and
Vegetables,
maize, or
even. Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
they need time to grow.
Hmm.
And so that's the first one. The second one is we also examine the relationship of people in terms of social and community. They need education, they need health, mothers, pregnants, babies, and what are the cycles, right? And then we also examine how the current financial um, market sort of try to replacing those trust base with their own terms, right? I mean, I deploy. So Amma, I gave you this and this much of money for you to manage, and I expect in 1 year you can give like so and so return. And you were like, okay, where should I get that? Right? Um, and you're doing it in a way that values efficiency, that values effectiveness without really examining what is lost in the process.
Mm.
So you basically, in a soil that needs to be rested after 3 months of growing corn and rice, yet you put fertilizer and force the soil to reproduce again, right? It's and then because you're adding fertilizers, and then basically because it's not resting means that there's a lot of um, pests like rats, like birds.
Mm.
They're just flocking because they're see, because they see lots of food there, right?
Right.
And because it's not resting. And obviously then you had to add like pesticides,
Yeah.
right?
You're depleting the
And then
soil. And then we get
and
to the
you're
point where the soil is just no good, and then you're seeing declines in your yield and increasing costs because you're trying to just keep fighting with all these things. So I mean, that's a massive problem. We're talking about big agriculture, which is a very powerful force,
Mhm.
right? A very powerful stakeholder in this whole conversation. How do we, are you seeing any shifts in that whole conversation? We talked about how it's just so expensive to buy organic, which is great for us, but we're hooked on all these cheap you know, chemical laden products for food that we eat. And it's causing, and we've seen cancer rates and all the health implications and nutritional, food deserts in the cities. Like it's really just like, for me, it's like a doom story, right? Doomsday story. I just wonder where you said where the hope comes from, and if you're seeing a shift in the way that we are farming from the highest level. I mean, I'm talking about these big ag companies. Are we seeing a shift, or do we give up hope now?
of course not. So
That's all we
I
have.
think that's all we have. But also, I need to mention that my dad's job, the one that keeps me fed and clothed and educated,
Uh-huh.
one of it is selling pesticides.
Okay. Got it.
So like
Got
plot
it.
twist, right? Plot twist. Um, but also when years I grow and I was like, why don't you like selling like organic based pesticide or organic based fertilizers?
Yeah.
And he was a very pragmatic guy. Obviously, he has to feed his family. And he saw in the market that no organic producers are available, nor they can produce one solution that actually can be delivered because my house is basically rural,
Hmm.
right? And when it got to, the shop, it became so expensive versus the manufactured
Yeah.
toxic
The
ones.
mass produced chemical ones. Yeah.
And the people like my dad, aside from he's selling pesticides, it's not the only one, right? And these are when the hope lies in basically looking at the system and where the roots are coming from. Most of the things that we do right now and we see right now, it offers partial solution, but nothing is sustainable. And this is where the shift need to change. This is where actually coming back from our first conversation is where the philanthropy needs to come. It's not because it's like funding systemic changes, but it's funding the way people realize that they are humans and there are cycles. And this transition that needs to, that are really, what I'm going to say, match the philanthropy. Because
Mm.
if you look at, and this is coming from me from the words of Lam Nguyen Phuong, and I might butcher his name because he's Vietnamese, and Vietnamese are hard to pronounce.
Okay.
Um, he often reminded us that philanthropy comes from Phil and land, but essentially love of
The love of
humanity.
humanity. Yeah.
Love of humanity. It's not giving charities. It's remind us all that we are human, and it does not make sense to make human works in this kind of system,
Mm.
which are so extractive. It's not good for us. So
It's
why?
literally killing us and our environment. And so that's a very act of the opposite act, right? So how do we actually level up philanthropy to really step in to save our humanity? I mean, not saving that kind of rescue, but to enable solutions that are good for us as a human race.
Exactly. They should be the one who enable us to ask who benefits from the current system, and then who carries the costs, and then who gets to find the solution.
Mm. And how do we
Framework.
shift things towards the ways that would be good for us? That those are the things that we need to be talking about. I mean, you're a Skoll Fellow, and I know we just, April was not too far away for the Skoll World Economic Forum in Oxford. I mean, what are you seeing amongst your other fellows, and what are the trends and conversations that you're hearing around different sources of funding? But of course, philanthropic funding is what we're talking about here, but just generally how people are approaching systems change and some of these really difficult conversations when you talk about power, like powerful, stakeholders, whether it's politics or business, and then looking at what's good for us and our planet. What are you seeing as a sort of pervasive or emerging trends and thoughts around these topics?
For me, and again, this is coming back from the philosophical meaning behind philanthropy, which is the love of humanity. What's emerging is that every human, despite of their stature, despite of whatever resources they have or don't have, actually have agencies.
Mm.
And I think this kind of conversation of realization is what philanthropy enabling us. You know, being Skoll Fellow doesn't like they gave you money. No, but
Yeah, I get it.
uh, obviously there's a sneaky head that I wish they do, but I wish they do, but um, they allow us a space where we, realize that we actually have that agencies
Yeah.
and is not like being dependent on the philanthropy, just giving us the agency as a human that we are actually have ability to cope with this, to provide with the solution.
And the
You
net and the network
respectively
and the network as well, because philanthropy isn't just about money. It's about different types of capital. So you've got social capital. I mean, the network, I mean, for Skoll, of course, it's amazing. Global network of amazing thinkers and doers and fixers, right? But philanthropy is more than just giving money. I think that's where philanthropy globally, especially South now in this current economic and social climate, we need to really enable our connecting of ideas, thoughts, spaces, time, sharing, and really collaborating in a radical fashion to really figure out how we can connect all our different sources of capital and shared learnings to make sure that we actually make a dent in some of these huge challenges that we're all facing together.
No, it's just remarkable and signifies how ignorant I am to the to the striking similarities that we have at Global South,
Yeah.
whether you Africa, Asia, or South America. We're having similar syndrome coming from colonization.
Mm.
And that's, I've told you before, but I'm actually manifesting like, why don't I know my brothers and sisters from Africa sooner? Okay.
Mhm. Fantastic. And I think that's yeah.